Hi, it's Haley with Ag in the Classroom, and today we have a fun seasonal lesson about coniferous trees and the kinds of conifer trees that grow in Iowa. A conifer tree is a kind of tree that has cones or pine cones and has needle like leaves on their branches, and most of the time they stay green year round. So we might call them like an evergreen. They are grown on farms on logging farms and lots of times on Christmas tree farms. And we actually get to go visit a Christmas tree farm here locally and meet with a great tree farmer, and he'll give us tons of information about running his farm and about conifer trees. Tree. During our lesson, you're going to hear us chat about pine trees, spruce trees, and fir trees. Those are the three main types of conifer trees that we are going to chat about. And within each of those three varieties, there are smaller varieties like a white pine or a uh, Norway spruce, and lots of other kinds that we'll go through, and you'll get to see some examples. So, just to get us started off here, we are going to head to the Christmas tree farm. It's Wickiup Hill Tree Farm, and I'm going to take you along with me. Okay, we are at the Wickiup Hill Tree Farm, and I am here with my friend who we are going to ask some questions to.
Hi, I'm Corey Johnson. I'm co-owner of Wickiup Hill Christmas Tree Farm. I worked here as a high school kid, but took it over in 2020. So we've been working at the farm for about 5 years now. We grow several different types of trees. We have pine trees, spruce trees, and fir trees. What you're looking at here is called a white pine. It's a really popular tree. It is a nice, soft needle, long needle tree. And this is a very, very popular one. They get very full and bushy. This is probably about a 9 to 10 foot tree here. If we come this way, just a little ways, we have a variety of spruce trees. If you were here to touch this tree, it's sharp and it's pokey. It hurts. That's how you know it's a spruce tree. We've got about 5 different types of spruce trees here. Going back to the pine trees, we have 3 different types of pine trees: white pine, Scotch pine, and red pine. And then if we walk this way a little bit farther, we have the most popular tree on the farm, the one that people seem to like the most. It's called a Fraser fir. Fir trees are a shorter needle tree, and they're much softer than the spruce trees, so that's why a lot of people like them. But we have Fraser firs, we have balsam firs, we have canane firs, and we even have a concolor fir. And a concolor fir is a really unique tree. Kind of smells citrusy when you break the needles. That's a kind of a niche tree, but it's one that I really like. Okay, this tree right here, we just planted this year. So we always plant, we shoot for the first week of April, and we'll plant all of our trees in a couple weekends. So this is a little baby white pine, only been in the ground for a year. It will take between 7 to 10 years for a tree to get from this size here to this size here, which is about 6 foot. So every tree on the farm that's 6 foot, we will put one of these little tags on. We'll write the species of it. So this just says W pine for white pine, and then we'll put a price tag on it. And then there's a little spot here where we just mark the approximate height. So this one has a little etch next to about 6 foot. So anything that's 6 foot and bigger, we'll tag. And the people that want to come out here, they can use a saw from us, and they cut down their own tree. Okay, this big tank we bought a couple years ago when we didn't have much rainfall, and we lost probably half the trees that we planted. So we bought this 200-gallon tank. Right now it's hooked up to spray trees, but this is called a water probe. And if you look at the bottom of it, there's a hole. So this is a hollow metal wand, if you would. We would connect this hose right here, and then I can turn on and off the water. So what I would do is I would stick this next to the roots and stick it down about 10 inches and shoot water down to the roots, pull it back out and move on to the next tree. That way we can keep trees alive in the spring if we don't have the water. All right, this is one of our John Deere mowers. It's a 60-inch mower, and we use this on our west side of the farm, which we were just looking at with the trees, because the rows are wider and we can fit this thing in between the rows. But that is a big summer job, is mowing and keeping this place under control. We do have another mower just like this. It's got a little smaller deck for the east side of the farm, because that side of the farm is set up a little bit differently as far as how far the trees are apart. So if we use this one on that side, we'd be mowing down trees, and that wouldn't be very good tree farming practices. As I mentioned out earlier in the field, when people come out and they want to cut down a tree, we have about 50 saws that look just like this, put nice fresh blades on them. They get to walk out there, go find their perfect tree, cut it down, and then they just give us back the saw. If somebody were to cut this tree down, inside this tree there are some dead needles as I just pull them out. So one of the things we use is what's called a shaker. It's named a little shaky. So they cut this tree down, and we will take the trunk and we'll stick it in this little shaker. And I'll have my workers hold on to the top of the tree and somebody else working inside of here, and it'll shake this tree and all the needles will fall down, and we'll give a clean tree to somebody as they're taking it out of the farm. One of the main jobs during the summer is to make a tree actually look like a Christmas tree. These things do not grow. If you look at any pine tree just out as in somebody's yard, it doesn't have this nice cone shape. So what we do is every single year, when the needles get long enough, we take these shearing knives and little nippers, and we will shear, or we will cut all the way around this tree with this thing, all the trees on the property that are about waist high and above. So we use the little nippers for the top, so we want to make sure that there's only one stem going all the way up to the top. This one you can see there's a few more, but I'm guessing this tree's not going to come, or it won't be here next year, so it doesn't really matter. We want to keep the trees nice and full, but otherwise we would probably want to cut this guy off right here too. So that's the only thing going up, because we want one trunk and one nice straight tree. All right, this is a great example of a red pine, another one that's got these really long needles, little sturdier branches, but this one doesn't seem to have a bottom, and if you look around, there's several of them like that. These trees have actually been rubbed on by deer. So deer will come and they'll try to rub the velvet off of their antlers, and they'll rub whatever tree they can find, and what it does is it kills all those branches. So instead of having a tree with a big old bare spot, what we do is we cut off the bottom of those things, and then we allow people to still buy these trees. Now this tree, if I'm looking at the tag, is about a 5-foot tree if you were to cut it from here and up. So if people want a 3 to 4 to 5 foot tree on our farm, we let them cut down trees like this instead of cutting down a tree that looks like this, because we want these to grow to at least 6 foot to make a good Christmas tree. One of the hardest parts about being a Christmas tree farmer is controlling weeds, maintaining the acres upon acres that we've got of Christmas trees, whether it's taking care of the weeds or staying up on the mowing. Shearing the trees and making them look like a Christmas tree is incredibly difficult. We do run into times where we have some pests that try to attack your trees, so trying to make sure that you don't have disease take over or bugs that take over. There's a little bug called an aphid, and an aphid will suck kind of the juice out of your fir trees, and we've struggled with that a couple in the past. We actually had somebody come out with a drone this year to try to spray the trees rather than us backpack spraying it, and that seemed to help us out quite a bit. So controlling pests, shearing is the biggest job, and then with farming, you get one shot to do everything. So when you plant, you got 2 weekends to get it done, whether it's raining or whatever it is. You got to get the trees in. When you're shearing it, you start the job, you got to finish the job. But everything you do, you get one shot a year. So sometimes you got to go back into the memory bank as to, okay, how did I do that? What did I mix here? So it's a one-shot deal, and then you move on to the next job when the time comes. The best part about being a Christmas tree farmer, I unfortunately don't get to experience as much, but the Kawasaki that we have, I've got, actually my father-in-law drives that thing around during selling season, loads it up with kids and parents. We've got another guy by the name of Cliff that drives his around, and they get to go out and help people bring the trees back down the hill. I got to do that one time just because one of them was eating lunch at the time, and the smiles on the little kids' faces as they're bringing their tree down and they're riding in that machine, that makes all the hard work worth it. I get to see some smiles when kids are down there watching the tree shake, but actually getting to ride next to them, that's kind of the reason that we do this. Christmas is a really fun time. We want that perfect tree to go to everybody, and getting to experience the joy and the fun that families have. That's probably the best part.
Okay, the first variety that we are going to talk about is the pine tree. Rigid clusters of needles for leaves, cones with seeds for reproduction that are tight to the branch, grown for timber, wood, and Christmas trees, and keeps its needles year round. So, the biggest way to know between a pine tree, a spruce tree, and a fir tree is the cones are different. In our examples, our Christmas trees did not have cones on them. So, we are going to look a little deeper into the different kinds of needles, and that will help us decide which tree we are talking about. So, for the pine needles, the rigid clusters of needles for leaves, and I'll show a video in a little bit, but keep in mind of the rigid clusters, clusters are going to be a little different than the spruce and the fir. The next one that we are talking about is the spruce tree. It has hanging pine cones. The tree grows in a cone shape. It is grown for timber, wood, and Christmas trees and keeps its needles all year round. So I'm sure that you guys have seen trees with the pine cones sort of hanging down. Those are most likely a spruce tree. And the last kind that we were talking about is the fir tree. It has upright cones, flat needle like leaves, grown for timber, wood, and Christmas trees, and keeps needle leaves all year round. So for the fir tree, the needles are flat. And again, I'll show you a closer video of this, but the needles are flat. And for the spruce tree, the needles are not quite flat. And there's only one needle out of each little spot on the spruce and the fir tree. And the pine tree has several needles out. And we'll look into this a little bit closer here from with some videos. So, looking at this first picture, these are the pine needles. You can see that there are several needles coming out of each little shoot. So, like, I think there's three at least out of that bottom one. So, that is what makes the pine needle a little different, is that they are a little bit softer and they are several shoots, several needles come out of each shoot. The next picture here is a fir tree. So fir has flat needles. I know that this is kind of hard to see, but each little spot is just one needle coming out of the stem, where our last picture had several needles coming out of each spot. So that is a difference from the pine, from the fir, and the spruce. And also, if you can kind of see, these needles are more flat, and maybe it'll make more sense when you see the next picture. This next picture is of the spruce, and you can kind of see these are not as flat as the other one. And also, only one needle is coming out of each opening. I'll kind of flip between these two here so you can kind of see how the ones are more flat needles and the ones are more, some people say they're more of like a square instead of round because they do sort of have sides. So then we are going to play a little game, and I'm going to show you different samples on the screen, and you guys can guess if it is a pine, spruce, or fir tree. I've included a sheet numbered 1 through 11 with fir, spruce, and pine. So as I show the samples, you can circle which one you think it is, and then I'll show you the answers at the end. And it actually has the specific varieties on there as well, so you can sort of see what the different varieties are. There's a few different varieties of pine. There's a few different varieties of fir trees, and then there's a few different varieties of spruce. And so you can just kind of see the differences of there, but I don't expect anyone to know all the different varieties unless you were an actual tree farmer. But knowing the difference between the pine, spruce, and fir is kind of a fun thing to know and to explore more. I hope that was really fun for you guys. I know I sometimes even forget how many different kinds of farms are in Iowa or in the United States or in our world. So I'm so glad that we got the opportunity to go see a tree farm, and I hope that this just reminds you that there are all kinds of farms around Iowa and all kinds of different farmers that are so knowledgeable and so kind about sharing their farm stories. And I hope that you got to learn a little bit. Thank you.